is it working? It like froze after I did it. So, hello everybody again. Just before I start, I want to say, because you might see it and think that I don't know what you think, but um, I was trying to be a good person and I gave blood, or I tried to give blood on Sunday. And I have very small veins that are very difficult to find. Typically, I need to have a very small needle, but when you're giving blood, they can't do a small needle because it takes even longer. So they have to give me the big needle, and I didn't know I was going to donate blood because it was after church, at church. And so since I didn't know, I hadn't like stocked up and drank a lot of water, which helps the amount of blood that you're able to give. So I'm assuming I only gave like half, which they said they could still use and it would still be beneficial. But um, the reason I'm bringing that up is because, of course, it's opposite on here. So let's see. This arm? Okay. Yeah, this arm is massively bruised because that's what happens when I give blood. And I think it was also, they stuck me, and I should have been like, hey, warning if you don't like seeing bruises. But I think they stuck me and then they moved it around to try to find exactly where it was, especially when it was going really slow. And I think that's what this is. And they even put ice on it right afterwards. And then that night when I got home from being really busy, um, I iced it a little bit. Again, not a ton. And at night on Sunday, it hurt to like barely touch, and now it just looks bad, but it doesn't hurt. Um, but just didn't want anybody to think that I'm like shooting up or anything. Not like I don't do anything, so I don't know what that would even look like. But I assume it's a bunch of needles in your arm. But it looks like they stick me 3 times, but I only felt once if they did stick me 3 times, and then yeah, I don't know. And then I have like a bruise up here, so it's like a massive. In case you see that, I'm fine. I just apparently, I don't think I bruise very easily, but I do apparently when it comes to trying to donate blood and be a good person. So, but the first time, it's always an issue, and the first time I gave blood was in Texas when I was going to school in Texas, and they always have to get a special person for me because I'm difficult. I don't try to be, but I am. And they didn't say anything about bruising, and I think it was probably worse or similar. They didn't give me any ice or anything afterwards, but and this is the first time where I've given blood, and I did feel a little woozy afterward. Like when you lay down for like 15 minutes, and then you stand up and you walk over, and they give you like sweets and water and stuff to make sure that you have enough in your system. Or I don't claim to understand what they do. I just go and try to help. So, anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about today. What I wanted to talk about today was something that I'm very passionate about. Well, 2 things I'm very passionate about. And I wanted to share them because I thought that might make me feel a little less awkward talking to a screen. I like the Facebook Live videos because you get a little bit of feedback, whereas this, it's just like, I'm talking to myself, but I'm not because I'm putting it out there, so whatever. Anyways, so I'm a sign language interpreter, and I was going through the program for years, trying to figure out how much I should tell you. I'll just tell you everything. It might take a little longer, but I will tell you everything. I've always been very interested in sign language. I always thought it would be really cool to learn. And I went to an arts high school, and they said that they would provide, or that they offer American Sign Language as a language while I was there, and I got really excited about it, but they couldn't afford it. And since I went to an arts high school, we had regular classes from until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we had conservatory classes, and I was in creative writing, so it was basically like another 2 hours or whatever. I think it was it was 2 to 6, and so we had from 2 to 6. I basically had another regular class, whereas other people did like musical theater, production and design, ballet folklorico. There was a bunch of different conservatories. I said production and design. I'm trying to remember all of them, but I can't because it's my 10-year reunion's coming up, so I can't remember all the conservatories, and it's changed since I went. So, but since they didn't offer it and I'd gotten really excited, like I do, I ended up, and then also my mom didn't want me to go to the community college after I'm already, and okay, so sorry, going back a little. My high school was in Santa Ana, which is not the best area, and I mean, it's not an awful area, but it's not like necessarily safe at night for a high schooler. And so she was already picking me up at 6 o'clock at night. And then she didn't want me going to the community college in Santa Ana even later and walking around campus or whatever for a sign language class if I went to the college to take it. So basically, I couldn't take sign language. So instead, I went to the library and I rented DVDs and dictionaries and stuff, and I started teaching myself. And I learned really quickly. That's kind of how my brain works, is for sign language. I'm more of a tactile learner, so touching and moving helps me learn and remember, keeps it in my body. So I'd go up to my mom and be like, Mom, look at what I learned. Look, I learned this and I learned this and I learned this. And she saw how passionate, excited, and how quickly I was catching on, so she hired me a private tutor close to when I was becoming, like, I might have been a junior or senior. I can't remember, but it feels like it was towards the end of high school. And also my high school was middle school and high school, so I always forget that regular people go to a middle school and then they go to a high school. Well, I went to a high school. I went to elementary school and then I went to high school. So I was there from 7th through 12th grade, and I was in creative writing for those 6 years. So when I tell people I went to high school for 6 years, I have to remember that that makes me sound really stupid, because it means I stayed back like at least 2 years or something, when I did stay back in elementary school, but that doesn't matter. Anyways, getting back on track. So she hired me a private tutor who had gone deaf later in life, and he came to the house and started teaching me. The one thing that frustrated me, though, was I'd open the door and he'd have to pass me to, walk into the house, because we had a little, I don't know how to explain it. I don't write anymore, so I'm not very good at explaining. But anyway, so he had to walk past me to get to where we were going. He was going to tutor me, the table or whatever, after I let him in the door. And so he would say, "Hey, how are you?" and then walk past me. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, he can't hear me now, so, like, how can I respond if his back is to me? So, and I don't think that he had any hearing aids or anything. He might have, but I can't remember. It was a while ago. And so he came and did that for a while, which was really, really cool. But then he was typically interpreters and sign language tutors or whatever, there's a lot of independent contracting going on in regards to sign language. So he was driving back and forth from wherever he lives, and it was too much money, and it just was taking too much of a toll on him, so he had to quit. And then shortly after, I went to college. I went through an interpreter training program, graduated from there, transferred to a college in Texas. Okay, I am going to go back a little. Sorry, this is so all over the place. This is just what my brain does. So hopefully you can keep up or follow or whatever. So I take my time in things. So the program at this college, community college, should have taken 2 years. Should have. I took it in 4, because I took one class at a time, except for the lecture classes. Because in my opinion, you can't take ASL 2 if you haven't taken to ASL 1 yet, because you haven't learned stuff in ASL 2 that you would need. You haven't learned the stuff in ASL 1 yet that you would use in ASL 2, but a lot of people took them at the same time and it was totally fine. So, I don't know. And I'm more like to take my time on certain things. So I took each class one at a time, and then I tried to filter in some lecture classes, like interpreting classes and stuff along the lines with that. So it might have been like my 3rd year, and my teacher had been saying through the entire program that everybody in the class needed to take an acting class to help with their facial expressions for sign language. And normally people do it the other way. They take an acting class and then they take a sign language class to help with their facial expressions for acting. I did the opposite. I'm very odd. I always do opposite of other people. I don't know. So I was like, no, 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 there's no way. I'm too shy. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want. And then I realized that deep down, I've always wanted to act. A part of me has always wanted to act. I'm wearing a shirt. I wonder if you get the reference. So it's actually funny because it's true, but I'll get to that in a minute. And now I'm losing my train of thought. So, what? Anyway, I'll go to the shirt then. So it says, I'm an actor, like I went to acting school for acting. So I was talking about wow, it's just gone. I was talking about sign language. Oh, right. Okay, so I finally, after 3 years of him being like beating it into my head, everybody should take a sign language or an acting class. I finally took an acting class, and I fell in love. I'm passionate about sign language, but there's something about acting that calls to me. And it's a passion that I don't want to ruin by, creating an image and spending all this money, because I've already spent a ton of money on becoming a sign language interpreter. So, yeah, I left that class feeling powerful, which I've never experienced in my entire life in any other aspect of my life. I am tall, so, especially for a female, so I was given powerful female roles because when you're in an acting class, you do scenes and stuff. So my very first scene in my very first acting class was, I'm going to get him confused. I think the first one was Sister Aloysius from Doubt. No, that was my second one. My first one was Catherine from Proof. And I'm sorry if you don't know these shows because I don't want to go into detail about it, but they're very intense, powerful female roles, even if the character feels weak. They are very powerful. So it was a really, really cool feeling. And so now I went from having no talents, no skill sets to go into the world. Now I have sign language and theater. Okay, well, great. So after I finished going to the community college, I transferred to a college in Texas, and I majored in theater. I minored in film, but that didn't work out. So, because the teacher and I did not work well together. I won't go into detail, but it was just not a good fit. I loved my leadership teacher, and everybody's like, there's leadership classes? Like, yeah, there's leadership classes. So I changed my minor to leadership, and I received a BA in theater with a minor in leadership. And I was one of the first people to get a BA in theater, and I'd started getting used to the idea of having it be a communications major because that sounds better. But by the end, it was theater, so whatever, and I like theater, so it's fine. So now I have a certificate for American Sign Language Interpreting, and I have a BA in theater with a minor in leadership.